Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you had a great Christmas, a good holiday season, and you are ready for the college football playoff games tomorrow, as well as the NFL playoff games, which will ensue soon. But first, we got to have the NFL playoffs set based on what happens in Week 17. Now, if you're sitting at home, you got nothing to do, you've been out all week, I've got a Lock It In show coming for you at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific that I would encourage you guys to check out. But first, let's go ahead and dive into the big games. Tomorrow, LSU, Oklahoma, and Clemson, Ohio State. What do I expect in both? Gambling picks right off the top. I love LSU minus 13.5. I think they blow out Oklahoma. I don't think this game is remotely close. Oklahoma at 12-1 reminds me a little bit of 12-0 Notre Dame back in the day that got housed by Alabama. What do I mean by that? That is what I mean is that when you really break it down, there isn't that much that Oklahoma has done well down the stretch run of this season. They could have very easily lost twice to Baylor. They could have lost to Iowa State. They could have lost to TCU. Oklahoma has much more of a 8-4 or 9-3 vibe than they do anything associated with a big-time performance overall. So, somebody just said, but they didn't. Just because you win close games doesn't mean you're a good team. That's why they have a Notre Dame vibe to me, because they had the opportunity to lose. Over time, the more close games you play, the more games you lose. Domination is what LSU has been accomplishing all season long, but one guy always gets dunked on eventually, like we saw with Notre Dame against Alabama. I think this Oklahoma team is an 8-4 or 9-3 caliber team. Not bad, but top 25-ish as opposed to top 4, and certainly as opposed to top 10. Joe Burrow has been getting better. This LSU defense, to me, is the big story. They gave up 20 points to Arkansas. 2 of those touchdowns were late. They gave up 7 to Texas A&M and beat the crap out of the Aggies like crazy. They also then went out and dominated against Georgia. This defense is rounding into form to go along with an incredible offense behind Joe Burrow. Oklahoma was fortunate in the Big 12 title game. They got exposed by a third-string quarterback. Jalen Hurts has just been okay down the stretch. I believe that LSU is going to win, and I don't think it's going to be remotely close. 20-plus point win coming for, I'm telling you right now, LSU. Hop on the Bayou Bengals. If you do, you will be ecstatic that you made that decision. Also, though, I like the under. 76, way too high. Oklahoma is not going to have a lot of success against this LSU defense. I think LSU will score 42 or 45-ish. I think Oklahoma will score 21 or 24-ish. That's well under the team totals of 76. And I'm telling you, LSU with an easy win coming in this game in Atlanta. By the way, also going to be virtual home game for LSU. And Oklahoma will fall to 0-4. 0-4 in the playoff. Let me repeat, 0-4 in the playoff. That is a mess. We need to start considering that when we consider Oklahoma and other teams down the line that are in the running alongside of Oklahoma. At some point, if you come into the playoff and you lose every year, you should stop getting the benefit of the doubt. All right, what about Ohio State against Clemson? I like Clemson here. Clemson has won every game by 31 or more since they started this run of dominance this season. So, I believe that Clemson will come out and house Ohio State. Justin Fields is not healthy. 6 halves Ohio State has played in their last 3 games. They weren't good in the second half against Penn State. They weren't good in the first half against Michigan. They also were not good in the first half against Wisconsin. one bad half gets you whipped. I think that Ohio State is going to get whipped by Clemson. I like the over in this game, and I like Clemson 1.5, 2, wherever that number is settling at your favored book right now. This is going to be a beatdown. Clemson, this is amazing to me. Clemson has won 28 straight games, and yet Dabo Swinney has been able to play the disrespect card for his team this year. Think about that for a minute. They won 15 straight last year. They now have won 13 straight this year. The last game they lost was in the playoff against Alabama, way back when. And they, I believe, are going to exploit Ohio State. Trevor Lawrence has rounded into incredible form after a very slow start. Since they survived UNC in overtime, they have beaten everyone by 31. The difference between a big-time team and an average team is the difference between, by the way, Clemson and Oklahoma. That's why the seeding mattered so much here, why it mattered who was the overall number 1 seed. Clemson, I believe, will handle Ohio State. I like the Tigers and the over in this one. All right, let's talk about the NFL playoff picture for a minute here. Only one real playoff picture that matters in the AFC, and it's the Titans going up against the Texans. And by the way, the Texans just released their injury report, if you have not seen it, and I am feeling very good about my decision to roll with the Titans in this game, and also you'll understand why Vegas broke the game down as they did. Will Fuller, out for this game for the Texans. DeAndre Hopkins, questionable. He didn't practice on Friday. Let's just big names that everybody's going to know. Kenny Stills had a big game against the Titans most recently, limited participation. He's questionable. Laramie Tunsil, left tackle, questionable. Deshaun Watson, quarterback, questionable. And Bradley Roby, cornerback. A lot of these names you're going to know. Basically, if you have any injuries at all or you are very important, the Texans are not going to play you at all in this game. Now, one little caveat here. If the Chiefs fell apart and lost at home to the Chargers, then the Texans might try and make a run at the 3 seed because they have the tiebreak over the Chiefs. But the Chiefs play at 1 o'clock Eastern. So already by the time their game kicks, the Texans will know exactly what happened in the Chiefs game, which is why I love the Titans here on the money line. Derrick Henry's going to be healthy. Everybody is going to be roaring for the Titans. They will get this win. The Texans will rest everybody. A.J. McCarron, by the way, in case you wonder, is the backup for the Houston Texans, so I like the Titans here. I also don't even like the Pittsburgh Steelers to win with Devlin Hodges as the backup against RG3 in Baltimore. I think the Ravens still win that football game, even with RG3 starting. But in order to make the playoff, the Steelers need for the Titans to lose. I don't think the Titans are going to lose, meaning the Steelers game is not going to matter very much in the grand scheme of things. So, if you break it down, the Steelers are rolling with Devlin Hodges, and it is not a good situation. Mason Rudolph obviously out for the year now to join Ben Roethlisberger. This, when you break it down, in the grand scheme of things, is the AFC playoff race. Now, if you happen to be a diehard Oakland Raiders fan, you need the Titans to lose, the Steelers to lose, the Colts to win, and then you need to win against the Broncos as well. It's not going to be very complicated. Titans win. I like them on the money line and advance to the playoffs as the 6th seed to go on the road against Kansas City, which we will talk a lot about next week. In the meantime, in the NFC, only one real uncertainty about who could make the playoffs, and that's the question of whether or not the Eagles can beat the Giants. Remember, the Giants came down into the Link and were up 17-3 on the road just a couple of weeks ago with Eli. Giants played well against the Redskins, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Daniel Jones with 5 touchdown passes. Saquon Barkley went off. I like the Giants to cover the 4 and make this a little bit nerve-wracking if you're an Eagle fan down the stretch in the NFC East. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, with Dak Prescott's contract expiring, complete against the Washington Redskins with an injured Dak at quarterback. I like the Redskins to cover this big number with Case Keenum as their backup as well. But ultimately, I think that the Eagles win, advance, get the 4 seed. Question is, who gets the 1 seed in the game between the 49ers and the Seahawks? I like the 49ers to get things done. Although, It's a fantastic question I got from a reader. Why wouldn't Marshawn Lynch go all in on steroids, HGH, every prohibited item you can possibly imagine just to finish his NFL career? It's not like he's playing multiple years from here on out. To me, this is a no-brainer for Marshawn Lynch. Somebody just mentioned, I should have mentioned this as part of my Eagles breakdown, Zach Ertz has been officially announced as out for this game. Certainly that factors in as well, but if you saw the hit that he took, it's likely that he was going to be out in general. So I think this is a relatively easy question to ask. Which side would you take? I like the Giants, but I also, in the big game between the 49ers and the Seahawks for the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, I like the 49ers to go on the road, get the win over the Seahawks, keep the Seahawks down at the 5. Seahawks would then theoretically go on the road against the Eagles. Your 1 seed would be the 49ers, 2 seed would be the Packers, 3 seed would be the New Orleans Saints, and your 6 seed is the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings would travel down to New Orleans for a game between 6 and 3. Vikings right now resting Dalvin Cook, hoping that he's ready for the postseason. But, man, they were all against the Packers on Monday night most recently. How about Antonio Brown? How about Antonio Brown on the road working out for the Saints? I've said it before. So long as your talent exceeds your problems in the NFL, you will always be employed. I like the move by the Saints. If they could get Antonio Brown on their squad and out on the field, you pair Antonio Brown with Jared Cook and Michael Thomas, the best wide receiver in the NFL, Alvin Kamara, all of the, sort of different opportunities and talents that you have from Drew Brees being able to read defenses. You got a jack of all trade, and what's his name from BYU, whose name just immediately escaped me, but it's almost impossible to defend, whether he's playing wildcat, whether he's going out, whatever position you want him to be. It is going to be, I think, a really difficult offense to cover, and as a result, I love the idea if the Saints could get him. Taysom Hill, there you go. I love the idea if the Saints could get him of being able to break down this situation before he officially gets suspended. I love the idea. I love the idea of adding Antonio Brown. I think it's brilliant by the Saints. Yes, I think Antonio Brown, probably not a good dude, made a ton of very bad decisions, but ultimately the question is straightforward. Could he be the difference between winning a Super Bowl or not if you are the Saints in terms of your offensive explosiveness? Yes, I think he could. I would sign Antonio Brown in a heartbeat. Take advantage of all the veterans that you already have on this team that could put him into space, into his place, so to speak. And so I think Antonio Brown could make a lot of sense. The question is, would the NFL allow him to play? Have they completed their investigation? I don't know, but I love the idea of what Antonio Brown could bring to bear for the Saints. I would sign him just for this playoff run. You don't need to have him long-term necessarily, although you could think about him long-term. He seems like he'd be a great fit with Michael Thomas, could take the top off the defense, makes the Saints offense that much more difficult to defend. Again, Taysom Hill, Jared Cook, Alvin Kamara, everything that you're already seeing from Michael Thomas, you add Antonio Brown to that mix. That is an incredible talent. How about the NBA? How about our old friends, the NBA? All of the blue checkmark brigade on Twitter. They love the NBA. They will defend the NBA to the end of the earth. The NBA is the good league. NFL's the bad league. Guess what? NBA officially tanking. ABC and ESPN set up an exclusive slate of games for the NBA on Christmas Day. There wasn't a single other sporting event you could watch. No college football bowl games, no NFL, nothing. ABC, ESPN, they're desperate. They set up all day NBA. And guess what happened? Ratings tanked. Ratings are tanking for the NBA. Now, a lot of different theories on why the ratings are tanking. Maybe it's because LeBron went to the Lakers. Maybe it's because of load management. Maybe it's because of people are sick of Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, and everybody else, all the players, deciding to tell us their political opinions all day long, every day. My belief is it's China. Maybe it's the injuries to Steph Curry, to Klay Thompson, to Kevin Durant. Regardless of what's going on, the NBA is tanking in a big way. And this is important because all your NBA stans out there will be like, well, it's cord cutting, like Mark Cuban said, or it's streaming or whatever else. NFL ratings are up big. NFL ratings are up on Monday Night Football on ESPN. College football ratings up big. Major League Baseball, pretty decent ratings down the stretch last season. Last year, NCAA tournament ratings are good. NHL ratings are up. It's the NBA uniquely that is tanking as the season is progressing. Why is it? I think my theory, people get mad at my theory, but I think the reason's pretty straightforward. I think the China situation was the straw that broke the camel's back for many different fan bases out there. All right? Let me explain. You ever play Jenga? Any of you out there play Jenga? I got kids. Sometimes we set up the Jenga tower. You're familiar with the Jenga tower. You have this structurally sound tower. The game itself requires you to pull one little block every time when it's your turn and not knock over the tower. Do you know what happens when you play Jenga? Every time you pull out one of those blocks, you make the tower weaker. And sooner or later, the tower collapses based on one block being removed, but it's not just about that one block being removed. It's about all of the other structural insecurity that has existed because of all the blocks that are being removed. I think what's happened with a lot of casual NBA fans, these are casual, middle of the road, like basketball, enjoy sports fans. I think they were like, okay, Greg Popovich and LeBron James and Steve Kerr are lecturing me about politics. I don't care. Okay, load management, I'm willing to overlook that. Okay, there's only one or two teams that can actually win the NBA. I'm willing to overlook that. Oh, they're banning the word owner because they decided it was racially insensitive. All right, I'll overlook it. Oh, they're moving the All-Star game out of North Carolina because of a transgender bathroom bill. Oh, and then China happened. And all of the league's hypocrisy suddenly came home to roost. And I think much like with the NFL, with the Kaepernick protest, I think the league blew up. It was the Jenga tower. It was the final block that got removed where the casual fan said, screw it, I'll go watch something else. And I believe if you really look, that's often what ends up happening to brands that take big hits. It's not any one thing. It's fanciful to say, oh, this happened, and now I'm going to totally change my behavior. It's the body blow over time, and then China was that Jenga block that got pulled that brought down the entire house for the casual NBA fan who has abandoned the league as the ratings have plummeted 14 or 15% so far this year. Finally, people had enough, and it's been a big hit to the NBA. I'd be very nervous if I had paid billions of dollars for the NBA like TNT and ESPN have. All right. How about the Miami Hurricanes? Miami got run last night 14-0 by Louisiana Tech. I can't believe how incredible of a collapse this was. All right, are you ready for this stat? This is from my guy Chris Felica, who does great stuff, The Bear on College Game Day. Miami's 14-0 loss, this is his tweet, to Louisiana Tech marks the only time in the last 40 years a team from a power conference, that includes the Big East, the Big Eight, the SWC, was shut out by a team from a non-power conference in a bowl game. We're talking about generationally historic incompetence in terms of the performance that the Miami Hurricanes just put forward last night. They fired their offensive coordinator. Congrats to Skip Holtz and to Louisiana Tech. But what a collapse this has been by Miami. The U, most assuredly, is not, in fact, back. All right. And finally, I got to go do my television show. Lock it in, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific. I got to tell you, I want to give credit to the Nashville police, all of the police forces in the surrounding Nashville area over their capture. If you guys have been following this on Twitter, if you've been following this story, two guys were killed, did absolutely nothing wrong. We're trying to protect a girl in Nashville. One of the guys who was killed Clayton Beathard is the younger brother of C.J. Beathard, who played quarterback at Iowa and also is a backup at the San Francisco 49ers. He was captured. I offered $10,000 to someone who committed that tip, gave that tip, and allowed him to be caught. If it did not come via a tip, if it did not come via a tip, I'm going to donate money to the local police forces in my hometown of Nashville, sprinkle some of that money around, and also going to donate some money to Battleground Academy, which is the school where both of these kids went. And so they can do something in both of their memory. Again, I got $10,000 out there. It's a story that I couldn't get over. It's a story that's stuck in my head. I'm fortunate now to have some money, to have some resources, and I like to think sometimes I can use that money for good. So I hope that I was in some way helpful in some tiny measure, but I want to thank the police for getting this thing done, for catching this guy, and I hope that we, once he has a trial and he's convicted by a jury of his peers, that no one makes the mistake of letting this guy ever out into the streets again to harm more people in my community. I also think we need to look into why this guy was ever allowed out of jail in the first place and why he was able to have more and more people as his victims when his history and his criminality was well established. I love all of you. Kisses, DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. I hope you guys had fantastic Christmases wherever you may be. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. I'll be live on FS1 in 1.5 hours. We're going to be talking NFL and college football playoff gambling tips. Having fun. If you're at home and you're bored, put us on. It's FS1. I'll see you guys. Love you. Have a great rest of the holiday and enjoy the games this weekend. I'll see you. Bye. Love you. Thank you, Facebook.